All right. Okay, so welcome again. My name is Jon Marble, and I've got Colleen Marble on here, who's going to be helping us out with kind of collating all the various different messages you might send. If you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll get it answered. I'm going to share a screen here, and let's see here. So which one we got?
Can I send you to the office? I can't hear.
What?
Can I send you to the office? I can't hear with you. Thank you. If it doesn't work, it's okay. I can go someplace else. Thank you.
All right. Everyone should be seeing the screen here. Let me start the slideshow. Oh, one thing I need to show you though, this is of all the timing. This has happened right now. So this is Azure. This is our hosting, and then right now, just before 6 o'clock, everything went down. So you can see all these little exclamations. This is RaceOwl. RaceOwl's in the central US, and right now RaceOwl is down. So it makes it hard to show RaceOwl when the hosting company is now not working. So hopefully it comes back up by the time we're done, but otherwise there's an app we can go over, and we'll have to use a little bit of imagination, but we'll figure this out. Yeah, always the best timing, right? As I keep admitting people. All right, back to this. Okie doke.
Wow.
So, all right, again, if everyone could go on mute if you can, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, we're going to go over for the ground crew, which we've never actually done before. We've always done racers, but this is the first time we've done just a ground crew webinar. So we want to go over the basics of what you're doing and try to answer the goals of, what are you doing with this check-in, check-out thing, and where is your paddler? Those are the two main things you're going to be using RaceOwl to do. And we want to try and get all the questions answered that we possibly can. All right, so if you haven't used RaceOwl before, it is a system of things. Its mission is really safety. It's meant to say, where are all the boats? Because if you got doing the 340, right, it's more than most other races out there, right? There's nearly 500 boats, and trying to keep everyone straight and located is a key thing. And Steve can attest to last year where it was major issues with things, and so needing to know where the boats are was very important.
I don't know how you're gonna do it.
Can we have folks go on mute?
This year.
Let's see if I can find them.
Maybe next year.
Ron, you're on. Abel's on. I'm going to mute you. Sherry, you're still on. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so back to the seminar here. So the mission, of course, is where the boats, tracking and checkpoints is how we're doing it. There is trackers available, which is setting up locations. And checkpoints if you are using that. So as you go through these checkpoints, let me see, can I go back? I can't go back, there we go. These checkpoints here, Waverly, Glasgow, Jeff City, Herman, etc. Those are all checkpoints which we would want a check-in, check-out for, which you would have seen in the safety video. So where the boat's at, tracking and checkpoints, broadcast messages, this will go out if there's any sort of a barge or any sort of safety issue. We will send via RaceOwl a broadcast message to everyone. You should be getting a test broadcast here in the next day or so. And what we want to do is make sure that everyone can receive that. These are really useful for like if there's a weather event, or like last year when we canceled the race, that's what we use these for, and RaceOwl does that for us. Otherwise, there's also individual messages. So you as a ground crew can feel free to text this. The paddlers can text this as well. This is there's volunteers that man this 24 hours a day. And that we're paying attention to this. This is not for your emergencies. This is for your kind of your little issues. If you DNF, if you have some issues that don't rise to an emergency level, then this is what you might want to use, because it's fairly handy and easy to use. You'll text in, that'll go into the system. A volunteer will look at it and then respond to you, usually within a minute or two. So primary thing, safety, and then secondary is informational, right? So as a ground crew, you really want to know where your paddlers are. And so through RaceOwl, you can pretty easily determine the ETA to checkpoints, which is really, really useful. It will do a pretty good job of estimating where they're going to come out, especially if they are tracking. If they're using checkpoints, it'll still try to estimate. That'll be really, really not very accurate though. But so I would encourage everyone, get your paddlers to track. It's better. It shows the ETAs to the various different checkpoints and ramps. So not just checkpoints, but pretty much every ramp along the Missouri. And it gives us leaderboard. So this is, it compiles who's in first, who's in second on a both the division level as well as overall. And then after the race, if you're so inclined, you can spend hours and hours just digging through the data. So you can download your positions, your statistics, everything like that is capable of being downloaded from RaceOwl. The system over here, if you look up here, we've got spot trackers, right? Right here is a spot. These are satellite trackers. These are Garmin's. And then if you don't have one of these devices, you can use the Android or Apple RaceOwl Racer itself. So extremely useful tools to track. These are only meant for the racer, not for ground crew. More on that in a minute. These all feed by positions. All your positions send up about every 5 to 10 minutes into RaceOwl, which then compiles all those positions, figures out where you're out in the river, and then posts it to either the map or to this results page. If RaceOwl comes back up, we'll get into it. Otherwise, you'll have to take my word for it, play around with it next couple days, and we'll go from there. Once you're in RaceOwl, then you have other apps which come in, which is where you want to be. And using the RaceOwl app, I misspelled it, sorry. Download this one, not this one. You want this one. This is for the ground crew. Okay, I'll pause there for any questions.
You're good, John. No questions so far.
Okay. Okay, so download that RaceOwl app. And then it'll be the blue one, okay? If you have this purple one, don't use it, right? That's the tracker. We don't want to be tracking your individual cars across rural Missouri. That's not great. A couple years ago, when we first started tracking with apps, that was a big issue. We've since got tools to deal with it, but you don't want to be shut down. What happens is I will see someone out there. It'll notify me that, hey, someone's tracking off map. I either have to text them, say, are you a paddler, or are you ground crew? And if I don't get an answer, then I kill the app. And so you get remotely killed. You don't really want to do that. So if you have this guy, delete him, don't use him. If you are charging a paddler's app, make sure you kill it, right? If they give you a phone, first thing you do, you kill this app. Don't run it. It's one of our 2 biggest mistakes made by ground crew. When you download the app,
By kill it, you mean just turn off that app when you have possession of the racer's device.
right? The first thing you do is make sure it's not running. So you stop running it, right? Don't let it run in the background. Just turn it off. Easiest thing, just turn the phone off, right? That way you're absolutely sure. Okay, check in, check out. This is an interesting race in that it extends to ground crew a possibility of you actually being involved with the race itself. And so this is kind of historical in that, you know, paddlers would go by checkpoints, and an option to do instead of them getting their phones out and texting in would be, hey, a ground crew sitting there at the checkpoint could say, oh, they came in, they went out, and so forth. So that is an historical option that's still here. I'm going to break out of this and show you real quick how to do that. If anything works, that is. So I'm going to pull over the iPhone version. So when you pull up your app, it's going to look like this. It'll be the RaceOwl. And you'll notice that it has what race are you running, right? That's the first thing you need to make sure. And when we get to the race next week, there'll only be one choice. Right now, there's a practice race, but you want to pull this up and pick the right one, right? It should just be one, but anyway, make sure you're on the MR340.
John, is there a way to make that window a little bit bigger?
A little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, just yeah, bigger is good because it's hard to read, at
Right,
least for me.
Let me do this. How about
There we go.
All right, how about that, right?
No,
okay. Well,
it must not want to be bigger. Okay.
Yeah, no, it wants to be the whole screen. All right, that's the biggest she's going to get. Hopefully that's big enough, but anyway. So pick your right race. That's the first thing you do. Pick the race, you're golden after that. At that point, then, you can enter your racers. Now, this is a big change from last year. RaceOwl apps here now allow you to enter multiple racers, which is really important if you're going to track multiple boats, right? So what had been in the past is you could just enter one of these, and then that's the one you were tracking. Now you can go, just keep on going, you know, as many as you want. You type in the number, separated by a column, and so forth, right? So that way, it's much easier to tell where is my racer, when is my racer getting to the various different checkpoints. So you enter that number. Now, the thing that's going to show up when you do check in, check out is your main one, which is this first one list. First one list is your main one if you're going to do this. You go here, it'll pull up call point or whatever checkpoint you have. And all you need to do here is just press check in. We've added a few little tidbits here saying you're not really there. Do you really mean to do this? This is the first day is always kind of like, I'll say, ground crew mayhem. So everyone's learning how to do things, and everyone's so excited to be part of the MR340 that you go kind of crazy on the check-ins. And so a lot of times you get to Lexington, and it happens to both the paddlers as well as the ground crew, and you start checking people in. It's like, well, that's not Waverly. Waverly's another 30 miles downriver. So you want to be really sure that you are where you think you are. And so this was added to as a really, are you sure? Because you're going to make it hard for us to fix it, right? If you get it wrong. So use it wisely if you're going to use it, and we'll go from there. It'll send stuff, and it will then, I don't know if we're getting a response back because I'm sure it's still down from a website point of view. But anyway, it will send it out, and then RaceOwl should respond and say, yep, I'm acknowledging you, you're good to go. Now, as far as time, it's automatic. So you watch it, you check it in, you check it out, and you go. If for some reason it's easy to miss, right, it gives you a choice to slide this back. And so you can modify your time by a half hour just by this little slider bar here. If you need to,
I'm sorry, that goes in kind of well with the question that just came up. Casey Edwards said, I know last year my wife was somewhere on the river and the app did not update till she or I both got signal. Is there a way to have a paper trail for check-in or check-out since I won't be able to get to my wife till Wednesday night? So like if you know, or you or she can track the data, you can go back in and add it after the fact.
So the easiest way, I mean, yes, you can do a paper trail, but you also have this. So the checkpoint log gives you everything you sent. All right. So this will log everything you send. So that's actually giving you that paper trail inside there. Even if this didn't send, it's still waiting to send, right? It goes to log, even if you need to change it. So here's another thing, right? If you are in here and you press send and it goes, but oh gee, that's the wrong time. Well, you can go in here and click on it, and you can actually modify it even further. All right, so let's say this was 5 o'clock. You could even go back further in time than that if you so desired.
And also the paddler's device is storing data even when there's no signal on the tracker side.
Correct. It's storing it in the device itself. So even if you don't have signal, you still have it logged.
Right. So your paddler could go past Waverly, for example. It logs it, and even if there's no signal, which I think there is there, but just for an explanation, even if there's no signal, once they do come into range, it'll ping and log them in at the time that they pass.
Correct. Yes. So whether it's a location ping or whether it's one of these checkpoint pings, they get stored up, and when a network becomes available, it will send. So even if it doesn't send right away, you're fine. It will send eventually. Now, in this particular case, when RaceOwl itself is down, it's not going to send. It thinks it sent, but it's never going to get a response back. In this case, it has a network, but there's nothing on their side to do it. So that's a special occasion, which actually has never happened until now. So this is a new event for us. Regardless, we still at least have that paper trail. Anyway, they come in, you check them in, they go out, you check them out. Really simple. Now, any questions on that? Otherwise, I'm going to go with a little bit more nuanced of how to use this.
There aren't any pending questions, John, but everybody just make sure you drop them in the chat there, and I'll ask them if they come in.
Okay. All right. There is still manual texting available if you're a flip phone kind of person. I would not recommend it. Colleen will attest, as you get tired, those texts get harder and harder to do. So the app is much more foolproof and much more forgiving. Otherwise, you'll just kind of like send this kind of nonsense thing, which provides entertainment to everyone on the volunteer side, but from a functional point of view, not that great. All right, tracking only. So tracking by a satellite or by phone is preferred to check in and check out because it's better for safety and better for visibility. So from doing this, if you are tracking, then you don't need to worry about the check in, check out, right? Actually, check in, check out is one of the biggest sources of error that I have as we go year to year. I would much rather see the track than I would see check in and check out. So all I'm saying is that I would highly encourage your paddler to track with some device, whether that be a phone or a satellite tracker, and then you don't have to worry about this stuff, right?
Right. So that there's a couple questions related to that. So yeah, why would you ever do it otherwise? You would the preferred method is automatic, but if for some reason something goes down, a phone falls in the river, you lose your device, you need to know how to do it manually.
This is the backup, right? So it's the backup. So this is something you need to know how to do in the off chance that someone sacrifices the phone at the river, or the satellites all go down, whatever. This is something you need to at least be familiar with.
Yeah, and so the paddler can do all the checking in if they have a device that is tracking.
Yep. Well, if a device is tracking, RaceOwl checks them in and out. Right. So it's automatic. No one checks in human-wise. It's all done by the machine.
Right. Here's another question from Chris Cardwell. I've heard some people talking about running RaceOwl on a burner phone to save your main phone's battery. Cell service is or isn't required to run the app, either for crew or racer?
So think about what that means, though. So if you're trying to track and send information, if you are on a burner phone or in airplane mode, it's not sending any data. So that would defeat the purpose of position tracking and check in, check out. So when you are on a burner phone and on the river, that's really meant for just navigation, right? They're using it for keeping in the channel and anything offline. They still would be required to check in and check out or track with another device if that's what they're doing. Okay.
Good.
One more thing for just to advocate for tracking. When we went to reduce checkpoints, it adds a lot of river between these checkpoints, right? You've got Caw, you don't do it again till Waverly, you do it Glasgow, then you skip a whole bunch of stuff to Jeff City. There's a lot of river between here and there. So if you checked out here, we don't know where you're at until you get to here. That's a lot of safety. So again, from a safety point of view, it's just better to track, just because we would know better where you go if there's an emergency.
Somebody's saying again to just kind of, can you go back and explain the difference between automatic tracking and automatic check-in and check-out versus manual check-in, check-out? Please explain the difference.
Yep. So automatic is done when you have a device such as a satellite tracker or the RaceOwl Racer app itself. These are sending positions every 5 to 10 minutes. That has a GPS position. It takes that data and it sends it by cell data up to RaceOwl. So RaceOwl ends up knowing exactly where that person or persons are at every 10 minutes downriver, right? Then it says, oh, I see you're coming into Waverly. I will check you into Waverly. Oh, I see you're leaving Waverly. I will check you out of Waverly. It can't do that if it doesn't have data, right? So if there is no data being sent up, the only option left for you is to use this thing to check in and check out. That's the difference between automatic and manual. You're telling a human are telling RaceOwl where you're at when you're at.
Those who are new might not know that it used to be the volunteers at the checkpoint with the clipboard. And
well, if you go way back, there was no, the volunteerism was just one person there, and you had to get out of the boat, go run up there and sign a time chart.
Yeah.
That was going way back.
So here's a question for Dragon Boat. The captain will be tracking, so we have to check in and check out all other members not tracking.
No. Just a boat. One check in, check out per boat.
Okay.
Yep. No reason to do that for everyone. We know you're in the boat.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, talked about that. Okay, we were going to do a raceowl.com demo. Let's see if it's actually up. Anyone see if it's up and running yet?
We can look.
Let's pop out of this and see. Go to Azure and refresh this. And hopefully it goes away. I think it's probably still down.
I think it's down. It's just spinning on my end.
Yep. Okay. Well, we'll have to scratch that. Sorry about that. I'll make a video or something trying to share that a little bit later on usage of that. I think there's one already out there, but there's some nuance that I'd love to be able to get into. I guess before we go on to just the app, there is one particular thing that I'd like you to pay attention to on the website, and that is, let me see, I think I have at least a picture of it. So let's go back here. And this is why you should always take pictures of your stuff without relying on live stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't have here, but if you look at these maps, they have these little chevrons. They're like different colors of chevron. And I want to draw your attention to when you look at that, you're going to see a boat number above it, and you're going to see the color of the chevron. That means something. All the same colors indicate the same division, right? So if they're all yellow, you're all in the same division. If they're all red, you're all in the same division. I think red this year is women's solo, but you'll see what I mean when you see it. If
John, can you zoom in at all on that while you're
maybe, but it doesn't really have the pictures that we want either. So let me see here. That went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, here, let me just do this. Huh. All right, well, it's not perfect, but okay. So yeah, you'll see over here in this map, you're going to see the chevrons. You'll see a button above it. You'll press that chevron, and it's going to show you details. And in those details will be ETA to the next checkpoint. It'll have things, most importantly, the battery, okay? So if you're a device like a phone, it's going to show you the current battery state of that device. And so I'd encourage you as ground crew, check that out every so often. And I'd say if they start getting towards 30%, that's worth a text to them. Say, hey, you might want to get on a charger, because the one thing we don't want to have happen is for that to run down to nothing, which the phone will actually start yelling at them a little bit. But if they're not paying attention, they have really, they've put it up someplace, they might not hear it. So if you can get a hold of them before they get down there, encourage them to put it on a charger. Most people will be paying attention because it's kind of ingrained. You don't want to run out of charge on the river. Yeah, so that's one thing to be aware of.
Check it at, when you meet your paddler, just be in the habit too of checking, because there does come a point where your paddler is so tired and, kind of, delirious from the river that they may not be able to check it for
what
themselves.
are you talking about, Colleen? I've never been delirious.
Yeah, so definitely check it when you have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely do so. Yeah, so chevrons with battery, that's a key part of this map. That's the only place where that information is available to you. The numbers actually take you also to split screens, which we'll go over in a second as well. But in each place you see a number, if you press on it, it takes you to splits on RaceOwl, and it will show you, when are you going to get this checkpoint, when are you going to the next checkpoint, etc. It'll be this running list of checkpoints all the way down river. And that's a really good resource for when are they going to get there and are they tracking, right? If you see they're tracking, you'll see those split times just one off, in, out, in, out, in, out. That's a good indication they are tracking well. If they're not tracking, you won't see any of that. So that's an indication to you, besides the nastygram for me saying, hey, you got to revert to manual check-in, check-out because you're not tracking. All right, so we talked about the chevrons, talked about the battery, talked about the current leaderboard. If you view into this, it'll show you it gives you a big table of who's winning, who's not winning. There are it's not using the estimated position, and you got to realize sometimes they go into dead spot and they stop sending. Okay. And so they might not update for a while, and so you'll see them actually drop behind. It doesn't mean anything bad. It just means they might have dropped out as far as tracking. It'll catch up as soon as it finds another signal. And that's another key point. Over here on this map, the chevrons, they have a color to it. They have black and they have red. If you see black, that means there is a location that has been sent within the last hour, right? It's pretty up-to-date location. So we can use that as oh yeah, I know kind of where they're at. They're within an hour or less of this point here. And RaceOwl will actually project them ahead a little bit if it's within a half hour. So there used to be some mental math you had to do. If you saw where they're at, you'd have to look at what time they got updated and then do some math. Well, they're going about 6 miles an hour. That means they're going to be somewhere about here. RaceOwl does that for you. And so as long as it's within a half hour, you'll see RaceOwl actually projecting them ahead on that map to the point where it's really, really accurate. You'll see them, you look at the map, and you see them right there. So have fun with that. That's a fun thing little game. See what ones are up to date and what ones aren't. When it goes red, it doesn't mean they're dead. So if you've got a grandma who's going to be watching this, make sure you tell them that red does not mean bad. It just means they're not tracking for a few minutes. And we don't get concerned until several hours later.
Right. Not that we've had that experience.
Not that we've had that experience at all, but yes, remember, red is not dead. Okay. All right, let me go back to the slideshow. I think we're done with what we need to do here. All right, any more questions on raceowl.com? I know, I'm sorry, I couldn't actually show you because of the website, but so be it.
From a ground crew perspective, while we wait for a second for questions, if there are any, I will just say that this has been the best thing ever, because it's easy to project when they're going to be someplace. So it saves a lot of guesswork and wandering around Missouri. If you can look on the website and be able to see about what time to expect them wherever it is that you're planning to meet them. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. That to me is the best thing ever. There's a lot of other good features, but from a ground crew person and the logistics of getting to meet your paddler and make sure that you can get them something to eat and a change of clothes or whatever it is that they need, being able to look at where are they going to be or when are they going to be there, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But there's no other questions popping up at the moment, okay. John. So.
Just remember ETAs, it's pretty accurate to the next one or two, but it can't read their minds. So if they decide to stop, right. That's going to go. So typically things further downriver are going to be not as accurate. Things close to them are going to be very accurate.
Yeah. And that comes down to communication, which does get a little harder as you go along too, because people get tired. But the more you can communicate about what your plans are, the easier it is to hook up with your paddler at the next checkpoint. Yeah. Here's the question that came in. It says, when we switch phones with paddlers for charging, do we just close the Racer app on the phone that needs charging and the paddler opens the app on the charged phone?
That's all there is to it. This designed to be very flexible. So if you have 2 phones, then you're going to have 2 apps, both RaceOwl racers, and you're going to turn those on, and it will start tracking where the other one. You have to set it up right and set the boat to the correct boat. But yeah, that's all you have to do. I will just another word of warning. That's not my preferred. I would so prefer you just leave the thing on the boat and charge it there, because this is where we have things like tracking ground crew because they forget to turn it off or something like that. So just be very aware if you are going to swap phones, turn off that phone. That's the easiest way to do it. Just turn it off.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back and now let's just make sure, see if Azure's back up. I'm thinking it's still not. It's still down, I think. All right, so be it. That's kind of a bummer because that destroys a lot of what we want to show because it requires some interaction, but there's at least a lot of good stuff we can show with just the app itself. All right, so going back to this thing, I can't show the Android side, but the Android is quite similar to this one. My emulator was, I installed it, but it needed to actually connect to the network and RaceOwl to get the data to go anywhere. So it didn't even have races downloaded. So I can't show that one. But regardless, they're very similar in operation. We already went over the basics here as far as you've got pick the race, pick your paddlers, check in, check out. We talked about, oh, one other thing, DNF, right? This is where you go to DNF, right there. Hopefully you don't have to press it, but if you do, that's where you need to go. A lot of people ask,
dropping out in case anybody's brand new.
yeah, DNF is did not finish.
You want to drop out of the race.
Yeah, and it's really important you let the volunteers know, and this is one way to do it. You press DNF, that sends a signal to RaceOwl, which then says, oh, you DNF'd. And then you might get a text from a volunteer saying, okay, everything okay. And from there, but this removes you from the map to say, we're okay. Otherwise, we're going to be looking for you, right? So if you drop out and don't tell us, then you kind of just disappear and it's like, oh, how are we going to close it's kind of like when you take off on a flight, right? They got to close the flight and they got to make sure everyone's where they need to be. Well, if you're in this big race with 500 other folks or boats and you're straggling behind and you decide to quit and you don't tell anyone, well, you've left the volunteers now with a problem because they got to find you and they'll track you down and figure out, are you okay? Or should we send in a boat or 911 for you, right? So just make sure that you let us know if you drop out. Really, really important.
And that, I don't know if you can do it here without connection, but the DNF, if you click there, there's another screen that comes up. Yeah, so you can't accidentally DNF yourself.
Right. You got to be really sure to do it.
Yeah.
And it's even going to say this too. So you got 2 clicks you got to go through.
Yeah.
By the way, where you DNF is usually the next checkpoint downstream, right? So that you want to do that. So it won't allow you to DNF a cop point. That's a DNS. That's different than a DNF. And so you usually pick the one you're heading to, and that's the one you DNF at. Oh, by the way, you can't DNF at St. Charles either. So that's the one exception. Hopefully by the time you get to Klondike, though, you can just float in and be happy.
People drop out, though, at Klondike.
They do because you don't know when you're going to injured. So yeah. Okay. So check in, check out. Again, hopefully you don't have to use this because you're going to be tracking. Splits and ETA. This is a new feature for this year. This is moving. So historically, this app has done nothing more than point you to raceowl.com, right? So it did the happy thing of taking you to the map and the happy thing of taking you to your particular racer's ETA. Those were both really good. This is now extended to be able to do this multiple person, tracking, as well as just a little bit easier stuff. So when you do splits and ETA, it's not going to show us much because I got no RaceOwl, but this would show you the same information you would see at the website, except it's now on your phone, and you'll see all the checkpoints listed all the way down. It will give you split times. It'll give you estimated times. It will give you times check in, check out. So you will see the same information that RaceOwl displays on the website right here. One key feature here that we need to pay attention to is if you do options, next watch racer. So this is an easy way to cycle through the racers, right? So here it's going to go the next racer, et cetera, however many people you've got in your list, and it'll show the ETAs for each one of those. So I think folks are going to like that one. I know I like it a lot just because I can easily see when people are getting in that I'm paying attention to.
Okay, so can you back up a minute? So do you set up something in the app to say,
Right
I
here.
want to watch these 4 racers?
Right. So
Okay.
right here in your racers, it's not just your racer, it's your racers. So everyone you wanted to do, so I want to do more. Okay, I'll just add a comma and I don't know, how about this one? And how about this one? Right? Just give that 4-digit number and then you go back into splits. Then you can cycle through them.
That's
right?
really nice. Mm-hmm.
And so forth. Okay, so kind of a key thing. So that's splits in ETA. Leaderboard, exactly what it means. It's the leaderboard. This has old data stored because I actually was on earlier today. So you can at least see what it looks like. I'm not real happy with the font, so I might do a little update to get this up a little bit. Otherwise, I think you can go into your phone accessories and make it a little bit bigger because my eyes are getting old and this is getting hard to see. But you can see here, you've got all the racers listed out. It gives you their current, overall and division, their race number, and then percent complete. This is percent complete on the race. And then the estimated time they're going to be at these various different checkpoints. So this is actually a good little overview. It gives you the next checkpoint's ETA, but not all of them, just the next one they're going to, which should be fairly accurate, right? So that's happiness. If you press and hold, it takes you to this ETA screen. So you don't have to be tracking someone. You can say any racer you want, press and hold, it'll take you to this thing and give you their splits. All right. Filter is good because that allows you to say, I want to look at some division, right? So here, oh, look at that. I can just focus in on just my racers, right? So then it'll show you just your racers and that's it, no one else. So that's pretty handy to do that. Otherwise, you can go and start filtering on individual, divisions. This is the practice race. There's just men and women, but you get my point. You can pick your division and it'll show you just those folks that are in it. One thing to be aware, don't forget to turn it back because sometimes it gets confusing because like, well, why am I not seeing all? Well, it's because you got a filter turned on. So turning your filter off is kind of important too. Next checkpoint, if you want to just pay attention to anyone coming into, we'll say St. Charles, then you can see it that way and it'll just see it, just the people coming to St. Charles. I don't need to dwell on this. I think you all understand this stuff. One thing, these are two a little bit particular. Stale racers means that they're not tracking. And so if you turn this on, then anyone who has a stale device just goes away. That's more handier for me as sitting at checkpoints. I don't necessarily want to see all the stale racers because I don't really know where they're at, right? All right, same thing with this one, active racers. This basically says if you're finished DNF or DNS, you don't want to see you. So you turn this on and you will only see people who are still racing. So that's handy when you get a lot of finishers. This thing gets pretty big and you just turn them off. So you just see the people still out there.
Somebody asked, John, can you show just St. Charles again?
Sure. So if you go just wrong one, cancel. Back to the leaderboard, filter, and you're going to go here and turn on next checkpoint to St. Charles. All right, go back and then you see just St. Charles.
Yeah, and so if you're new and this is your first year, you might be wondering, why would you care about any other racer except for the one that you are ground crew for? It's addictive. I will say, if you have any interest in data or statistics, it's really interesting to kind of see what other people are doing. And if you've done this a few years, you start to recognize names and people who are, finishing, they're fast finishers or they've got a unique story. If you're following the Facebook page for the MR340, you'll see lots of interesting information about people that someone might be struggling to keep on going. And so you might wonder, well, did they make it? Are they still in the race? So those kinds of tools are actually really neat for just kind of keeping up with everybody in the community. And you'll become kind of addicted to it. At least I do. So
Yeah, there's actually a name for it. It's called dot watchers, right? If you look at the number of hits that RaceOwl gets over the week, it's huge, right? This is a huge draw for a lot of people just to come out and watch and watch on their computer. Like coworkers at work, you'll be sitting there just kind of watching the race and seeing how things are going. It's amazing how fun it can be just to watch a stupid dot on a screen.
yeah. What are the numbers to the left of the racer number? So if you go back to the screen you were just on, John.
Yeah, that's their position. So this is overall place. So this would be second, and this is division place. This first in division. So this one first, second, third, fourth, etc. And again, this is multiple divisions, so I'd have to filter on a division to see 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's leaderboard. Okay, next one, race map. This one is kind of interesting in that you can use this to, it's really the same thing as what's on the website. It's just on the phone sort of thing. There are a couple of interesting features here, and it's kind of lethargic on this emulator, but it kind of allows you to move around. I was hoping to have the Android because it moves slightly differently than this one does. That is the Apple one, but you can actually zoom in on something here, and you end up being way down inside. Like here's like the St. Charles stuff. You'll see how the details start popping in as you get closer. What you find is that the website's fine up until the point where you're in a really not so good area for cell phone, in which case loading those maps actually becomes a chore. And what you'll see is that your phone to RaceOwl will start to just kind of start dying away. So it takes a long time to start to load that. So this, by giving you the reduced map, gives you the ability to not worry about that and sends just minimal messages back and forth between RaceOwl to get the racers. But anyway, this is just another way to view all the people coming in. There is an interesting feature in that if you turn on this thing, estimated positions, it actually will go back and you'll see them moving. So you'll see that each of the racers actually moving through that. Now, is it real? It's pretty close, but you'll see them actually moving down through the map here in real time. I kind of like to play with it, but that's just me. I'm a geek. This would turn up and down the size of the various different racers. If you're from Canada, turn on metric if you like. Anyway, same sort of things that we had on the other screen as well, especially show your racers if you want to see them on the map. Okay. I see. And I'll pause there for any other questions. I'm spending most of my time on the leaderboard when I'm watching these things because I'm wanting to see when they're coming in. I'm monitoring more than a few people, and this is just where I end up spending my time. I pop in here every so often, but mostly it's here.
There are no pending questions, John. So
okay, very good. And like I said earlier, these just take you directly to the RaceOwl map for the 340 and the RaceOwl ETA for this particular racer right here. Your first one's the important one that takes you there. All right, that's it on the app for the most part. Again, you'll have time to play with it and go from there. There are people around who you can shoot me a note. You can find people that understand if you got a question. Some of these are fairly new features, so they seem to be working, but who knows? I think they'll be fine, but we'll find out. All right, with that, let me see if there was anything else to talk about here. Go back to the webinar. Talked about the RaceOwl usage. I don't have an Android to show, so I'll have to skip that one. I think at this point, just open up to questions. So if we have a particular question, as long as we're not stepping on each other, go ahead and talk about it. But otherwise, there's still a lot of people on this phone. Maybe, Colleen, if you could still just kind of collate them, if there are any.
There aren't any at the moment.
Okay. In that case, then feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
It's a real bummer about not being able to show the website.
Yeah, that's great. Of all the times.
Yeah. I would say the best thing is to just use the app, and like navigate your way around inside the app before the race starts. Because it's just helpful to know where things are. You can't
Yeah.
hurt anything by poking around in it.
Yeah. There's the practice race is going until tomorrow, so that one should be, at least there's usually some paddlers out. You can play with that and see. I will say that the app is going to be a little bit more delayed than the website. The website has the source of all truth, and it has to beam it down to the app. So you'll see a little bit of delay in getting the information. So, but once it gets average speeds and all the positions, you'll see it be pretty accurate.
A question came in from Chip. Is there a way to verify that an inReach device is set up correctly?
Yeah, there is. If I had the website running, we could go right to it and I could show you. But what you would do there is you go and you look at the website. Let me see, we have this map here. So you go to this map here on the website. You go in there, there's a filter at the very top left. You press on that and you can enter the number and it'll show you that person's tracker, right? Now, there is a little bit of nuance there because the trackers, sometimes people have both a phone and a tracker, right? And so you don't really know if you're seeing the tracker or the phone, but one way to tell is just open up that chevron. And if it says unknown battery, that's a tracker. If it has a battery, 80, 40, 60, whatever, that's a phone. So that's an easy way to tell the difference between a phone and a tracker.
Also, you will reach out to people as you get close to the race to say, hey, you're not tracking, right? Everybody's supposed to turn them on the day before.
Yeah, that's actually been going on for the last couple of weeks. So if you have ground crew encourage the paddlers to get those trackers in there. We're getting towards the end. And I'll tell you, this guy is tough and this guy is not exactly easy. So setup for these, for the new person, is not easy to do. And so anyway, you follow the instructions the best you can. And if you need help, then call me in. I've done it now, I don't know how many times, but I can help you get through this, and I guarantee you it will work. If we haven't found one yet that didn't work.
Steve has a question about Android. He says, I have Android. Is the app not really working for me because the site is down?
Site's down, yep. So because site's down, this happens here. If you had it already started up, it would be acting like this apple, right? The apple's kind of working, but not really because it's not communicating. But you probably just started it up and it's trying to download races. It can't even do that. So there's no built-in races now for these apps. They download them. So that's not a big deal for the MR340 because there's good cell phone at CA. But some of these little races where you show up in your middle of nowhere, if you hadn't downloaded the night before, then you don't have a race map. So yeah.
Yeah, but what Steve is experiencing is not unique to Android. It's Android and Apple. If you didn't already have your app up and running, you're not going to get any information.
It's just the fact the website Azure is down for all of Midwest. So not just RaceOwl, but all of Azure and Microsoft is down.
Here's a question from Tracy. Is it okay to stop at any of the ramps? I saw that Portland says private.
I've stopped at Portland before and stayed the night there. So it's actually kind of nice. It's on if I'm remembering right, that's on the left side of the river. That's away from the railroad track. So as far as I know, Portland's a fine one. Certainly any of the ones listed on this check-in. Steve, you can probably pipe in if you can, but anything listed here, I think is fair game.
Portland is not private. There are private ramps along the river for sure that we would not want people to be stopping at. There is a page on the mr340.org website, which is a list of all of the public ramps on the river. And if you go to the new 2024 race updates page, which has a button on the homepage that you can go straight to it, there's a link for that list of ramps that is all of the private or all the public ramps. Hope that helps.
We have a comment, and it said it's not really related to app, but to ground crews. Someone's suffering from a slip disc. It says my mobility is very limited as well as my lifting. How willing have other ground crews been in the past to help other paddlers getting in and out of the water? And I wrote very willing. There are always people ready to help. And we've had our own experiences of, John had an injury one year and couldn't lift up everything to like put the boat up on the thing, and people just came and helped, right? People help you get in and out of the water. There's always, always, always people willing to help you. It is a wonderful community, and they'll never let somebody, suffer without help. I mean, like help carrying things if you need it, if you have an injury, if you have a question, if you run out of water. I've given water to racers. There's people always have extra of things. Just ask. As a ground crew of multiple years, I will tell you that you can't find a better group of people than the MR340 community.
Yeah, I think Scott Mansker said it best. It's like, this is what humanity is supposed to be, right? So it's definitely a really, really good community to just,
Yep.
Everyone's got the same mission.
Yep. Do we have any other questions? Any questions about ground crewing, since somebody brought one up that's not app related? If you have just questions related to being a ground crew, I am an experienced ground crew.
She's like the best ever.
Well, thank you, John.
Yes, I have a question if you can hear me.
Yes.
So as we're following our racer, I'm wondering where to deposit, where I should park and stay. I mean, do I want to clog up ramps and accesses, or should because I'll be in the way if for hours ahead of my racer arriving, should I try and find a place away from the ramp to chill until my racer gets close?
I mean, I always kill time doing other things. Because it's usually hot, if you're in the middle of July and August, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's hot at the ramp. So for me, I would try to figure out when John was going to come in to a specific ramp, and then I would try to arrive there 20 minutes ahead or whatever. Yeah. There's usually enough parking. People are coming and going all the time. They're crowded ramps, but there's usually enough parking, and you can bring a chair and sit away from the active loading and unloading in and out of the water area, and there's plenty of room usually for people to
and you're not going to be parked at the ramp, right? You're going to be well away from that.
Right.
I think
there's parking lots.
Yeah. I always think Miami, especially because that's where a lot of people will sleep over the night. You just be careful that you don't find an accidental paddler that's really tired and laying down someplace, but just be careful when you drive at night for sure. That there's
be
no
quiet
accidents.
and respectful, when you're at the checkpoints, because especially as the race goes on, people are exhausted, and you're having fun, and you might want to talk around the fire or whatever, sit around in a circle and talk, and it's 1 a.m, people are trying to sleep. So just be. Oh, and then somebody asked about ramp etiquette. I mean, that's pretty much it. At nighttime, people are definitely sleeping all around you, so try to keep the noise level down. Try to keep your lights out of people's faces if you can. But otherwise, I don't know that there's a ton of ramp etiquette. Like, your stuff is your stuff and their stuff is their stuff. So, don't assume things are lost just because they're sitting on the ground. Somebody might have gone to the restroom and they're going to come back or something like that, but I wouldn't say there's a ton of etiquette. Just be respectful.
Yeah, that's fair.
One thing that I will add is that we do share this river with other river users, and that can include recreational boaters, fishermen, but perhaps most importantly, emergency response teams. So the local fire department that could potentially have to go rescue a racer involved in the race or someone else who's on the river. So an important ramp etiquette thing is that as a whole, we need to make sure that it's possible to put a boat in, a motorboat on a trailer on the ramp. So we have to keep the ramps clear enough of boats that will allow that to happen. And that includes, in parking areas adjacent to the ramp that someone would be able to, pull in and actually back a boat down a ramp. So that's kind of another piece that's really unrace related that we all sort of have to work together. And it gets exhausting out there and you don't want to carry your boat up another time on another boat ramp, but it's something collectively that we all do have to do to make sure that that ramp's available when needed.
That's true. How crazy does the Miami ramp really get? I've been told that it is a very crowded ramp and to try to avoid it. I've also read that they limit the amount of parking there.
But Miami experience is one of the best on the river, though. Those folks go all out for breakfast and all sorts of food. It's a good spot. I don't know. I mean, we've gotten huge, right? There's a lot of racers out there. But I don't know, Steve, if you got anything on that one.
Well, I wouldn't say that like whoever they are, is limiting the amount of parking. It's just limited. It's a relatively small area, and the volunteers there really try to manage that so that people don't get parked in gridlock. And I'm talking about ground crews here. So, but yeah, Miami can be super intense. And that's a part of the race where, there are still kind of big packs of people, paddling together. And so even, getting to the ramp can be hard sometimes, as there's people putting their boats back in and there's people trying to come in, and it can be intense. Like Jon said, it's also really cool. Miami's a super small town, but they really they put together a great concession there as a fundraiser for the town. And yeah.
I mean, if you're worried about crowds, you can always do alternate ramps, right? You don't have to stop at the ramps that are that are the checkpoints. You have to check in and out of them, but you don't have to do your resupplies at those ramps. That said, though, you do miss some of the excitement that happens with the race. You miss supporting those local towns, but there's a lot of other ramps that have really great spots. So Cooper's Landing is my favorite spot. I love Cooper's Landing. And then Wilson Serenity Point is a beautiful place to spend some time, right there at Jefferson City, at the bridge. That's a beautiful checkpoint, and it's also one of my favorites. So you get to know them as you go along, but if you're really concerned about crowds, and your paddler wants to rest and not have all the noise, you just pick an alternate ramp and resupply there. So there's a lot of options.
Okay. Well, we are at time, so I think unless one last call for a question, otherwise we will say goodbye. And thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next week.
Enjoy the adventure.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Jon and
Thank you.
Colleen, you're amazing. Thank you so much. And the updates on the app are just mind-blowingly cool. Thank you so much.
Well,
I want to give a shout out to Jon. He is very, very, very committed and dedicated to RaceOwl. He puts in a lot of time, and it's neat to see his brain, coming up with new ideas all the time for it. It's a labor of love for sure. So yay, Jon.
Yeah, you're non-biased there, Colleen.
I know, but
yeah.
I see the hard work that you do, and I just, want everybody to know he's working hard for you guys, and it came out of his own experience. RaceOwl, the website was there, but a lot of the tracker and the apps and stuff like that came out of his own experience and my experience as ground crew. And so it's based on real experiences, I guess. So it's incredibly useful.
Yep. All right. Well, hopefully this doesn't continue past tonight. So otherwise we have another issue going on. So
right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll sign off here, and I'll stop the recording, and
Okay.
it'll be good.